afternoon. Welcome to a strategic plan update. I'm going to do a little introduction, go through one of the strategic initiatives, then Ross will come up and go through an initiative, and Mary will come up and go through an initiative as well, and then I'll close it off. We're hoping this will be one of the very last updates we tape. We're looking forward to next week starting having live audiences back at the updates. To get started, just want to distinguish strategic planning, why we do it, from the day-to-day dining and facilities maintenance that we do. A strategic plan is a process of evaluating major three-year initiatives, utilizing feedback from the board, the resident council, and the executive staff. We realize that we don't often like to talk about the strategic plan because we realize this is your home, and we're very focused on operational excellence every day. But organizations, in order to sustain, need excellence both in strategic planning and day-to-day operations. I mean, you think about it, without any strategic planning, there wouldn't be any CHL, there wouldn't be any TRIO, wouldn't be any Gray Oaks, wouldn't be any Grand Lake. Without a strategic planning process, there wouldn't be any physician practice that is currently incorporated in the service package at Moorings Park. So, day-to-day, we're very focused on excellence, but as a 501c3, we have an obligation to make sure that Moorings Park sustains excellence 25, 50 years into the future, and strategic planning helps us to do that. We always start our strategic planning by reaffirming the creed, mission, vision, and values. We did that again this year in this process. The mission, the creed, and the vision didn't change. Our mission will remain to provide simply the best facilities and services for successful aging with professional and compassionate care to each person we serve. And our vision will stay the same, to be the premier provider, to have excellence in delivering that mission. We did make a couple of tweaks to the core values. All the components are the same. But we did change a couple of them, and I know you might not be able to read this on your screen, so the slides will be posted on the internet. You can download them. I'll just call your attention to two of the value changes. Number one, we've always had integrity, accountability, and excellence as a core value. This time, we added quality to the front of that. Quality through integrity, accountability, and excellence. Quality, we don't believe, is a strategic long-range thing anymore. It's embedded in our culture, and we have so many business metrics that we track on a monthly basis. It's a core value now. The second change also relates to social accountability. It's the fifth one, commitment to the nonprofit to serve seniors and our greater community. Over 40 years ago, we got a tax exemption from the IRS. As a 501c3 organization. That tax exemption benefits each and every resident here to the tune of $4,000 a year. And we know now that hospitals are having to fill out a form on their 990 that explains their community benefit. Moorings Park has had a strategy in the past to make sure we're prepared for that. With the excellent growth and what the foundation is doing, we think that's now a core value. So you can see commitment to the nonprofit model to serve seniors in our greater community. Values are timeless. We just tweak them. The rest of them stay the same. Respect, ethical behavior, open to innovation, diversity is strength, tweaks to those two values. The main part of this presentation, though, is about the three strategies you see at the bottom, and I'll go through them each in detail here in just a minute. But before I do that, I want to go through the process we used to develop the strategic plan. If you'll remember, we started in November of 2018 all the way through June of 19, making presentations at open forums for all the residents about the old strategic plan and letting you know that we were developing a new one. Late in 2019, we had a SWOT analysis with the board of directors, with the resident councils, with the executive staff, identified our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. It was interesting to see common strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, maybe some that the board identified or that the residents identified that were a little bit different. All that information was fed into committees that created the plan that you're about to see. Finally, it was board approved. COVID, like so many other things, made this a very lengthy process this time around. So even though we started in November of 18, it wasn't until September of 2020 that we formed some execution committees to now start making the strategic plan a reality. Here are the 3 strategic initiatives we're going to be focusing on over the next 3 years. And again, these are in addition to focusing on quality and excellence every day in our service delivery. The first is organizational talent and culture. You can read it right there. Moorings Park is dedicated to fostering a strong workplace culture with compassion and motivated partners that are committed to excellence in the service to others. I'll go through some details or some amplifying information on that strategy. Then Mary Morton, our CFO, will come up and go through growth and innovation, where we want to inspire innovation and drive growth that enhances value and improves the aging experience. And finally, Ross Dickman, Vice President of Operations, come up and go through brand communication. The words are critical here. A high level of engagement is one built on shared communication and meaningful relationships. So again, I'll start by going through organizational talent and culture. Here is the execution committee for organizational talent and culture. I'll be the executive lead on that. And you can see Robert Sorensen, the director of wellness, is the committee chair. You can see the group of staff members that are going to meet on a regular basis as it relates to this strategic initiative. The 4 tactics for organizational talent and culture are retention, keeping the best people here, recruiting, getting the best people here, Moorings Park Learning Institute, once we're here, making sure they have the tools and the training to be the best that they can be, and then finally succession planning to prepare the organization and to help our partners grow. Let me go into a little bit detail on each one of those. Our main strategies that relates to retention is to create an incredible culture here at Moorings Park. We really focus on the partner experience. So many aspects of the culture here at Moorings Park, including the great Christmas and employee recognition gift that comes from the residents, including the great work that the foundation has to provide scholarships and make it a more desirable place to work here at Moorings Park. We also work on that as a management team, making sure that this is a great place to work. Compensation, if you're going to retain, you got to pay people what they deserve. We have a philosophy that people who have been here should be in the 75th percentile for the job that they're doing of wage earners. We do a study every year at budget time, work very hard to make sure that we stay in those ranges. And then finally, as I've already said, make Moorings Park a more desirable place to work. That is actually taken from the founding documents of the Moorings Park Foundation back in 1997, and it's something that we try to live out in all of our organizations even today. We do very well on retention. You can see in 2020, the turnover at Moorings Park was 17.3%. That roughly means a little less than 1 out of every 5 people are leaving the organization. We know how disruptive that is to the day-to-day service, but when you compare it to peers, it is an incredibly low number. The industry averages are 40 to 45% for our industry, so we're well over half that. Many of you know that we're in a group called Navari, which is premier providers in our industry across the country, now 19 member communities in that. There, the turnover will be 25% plus or minus on an average. So no matter what peer group we compare ourselves to, our turnover is extraordinarily low at 17.2%. But you can see it's been even lower in the past, and I'll talk in a minute about some of the external factors that have created a little bit higher turnover than maybe we had a few years ago. Next strategic tactic is recruitment. One of our biggest strategic challenges in the next few years is we can expect a very tight labor market. And I'm going to show you some data that's going to show you why we're expecting that. And I think it's going to be important for us as an organization to focus on branding, working at Moorings Park. If not as well, maybe even better, then we focus on marketing living at Moorings Park. And so you're going to see us in advertising start to talk about how it's different to work at Moorings Park. Let me go through some of the data that's creating recruitment in a tight labor market as a challenge over the next decade. Our turnover rate is often an inverse relationship to the local unemployment. Our lowest turnover ever was back in 2010 and 2011, when the unemployment rate during the Great Recession was up in the 12% range. It went all the way down to about 8% or so. There just weren't any jobs to move to. You can see from that time till really the beginning of the pandemic, we were on a chart with lower employment than we've ever seen before. Then we have the spike in the pandemic where unemployment rose to 15%, and now it seems to have settled at 5%. I expect it to come down over the next 12 months as well. As unemployment gets lower, recruiting gets even more and more difficult for organizations like Moorings Park. Here's a slide, and I'm not going to go too deep into the data, but I just want you to focus on the black line here. This is a representation of how many people are entering the workforce on a yearly basis. Between 2020 and about 2029, it will be the lowest in the 2000s. So there will be less employees coming into the market for us to recruit from. And actually, if you ran this slide back 30 or 40 years, there'll never be a period where there's less people coming into the workforce demographically than there will be in the 2020s. So as the economy continues to grow, you can see why we're going to be so focused on making sure that we keep our people and that we really do a great job of telling the story about why it's special to work at Moorings Park. This chart is already leading to charts like this. You can see Florida is in the bottom right there, where we're just into what's called a tight labor market, negative 0.1%. You can see California and Idaho are even ahead of us. But the point is, over the next 10 years, this tight labor market, the number of people available for employment versus the need of the jobs in a growing economy, it's going to get even tighter and tighter for Moorings Park. That leads to this, and this is a 40-year slide. The red line here is white-collar workforce. The blue line is blue-collar workforce, and it's wage inflation over time. And the only thing that I would point out, for the first time in the 40-year history, about 2018 or so, we entered a period where blue-collar wages are going to inflate at a higher rate than the rest of the workforce. We're already experiencing that at Moorings Park with really high double-digit increases for entry-level positions over the last couple of years at Moorings Park, where you're seeing standard 3% raises or so for the rest of the workforce. These challenges throughout 2020 are going to want to make sure we have a great culture, make sure we're retaining our people, but also that we're very sophisticated at branding, working at Moorings Park, and telling our story. Finally, the Moorings Park Learning Institute. That is a program we've started that is putting people through leadership school. It's also causing us to think things about how we make people better at their jobs at all levels. You see kind of initiatives coming out of it like Diamond Dining and the many leadership classes we have now. This next slide will show you we have about 45, 50 management positions here at Moorings Park that have been through these intensive leadership classes, and we think that will enhance your experience over time, and we're going to keep doing that, keep putting people through training to make them even better equipped to deliver excellent service. Finally, we want to get people here, we want to keep them here, we have to give them the opportunity to grow. We're going to focus hard on successful planning. We have a process where we identify all of our in-house high potential talent. We try to build next level leaders, and we're going to work with people even on the front lines and help them career map, improve their own lives. And there are so many great things about being at Moorings Park. One of my favorites is seeing people that start as a caregiver in the assisted living or the skilled nursing facility, and then they get a foundation scholarship, and then they get their LPN license, and then they get their RN license. They stay, they grow with Moorings Park, and enhance the life of not only our residents, but their families as well. And that story can be told in the management area as well. A couple of people that are involved in our strategic planning, Kayla Crawford, who's the executive assistant for Ross, started in dining, got some scholarships, now just doing an incredible job as the executive assistant for Ross. Robert Sorensen started as an intern here at Moorings Park at FGCU, now our director of wellness on this campus. So many stories like that where we get people in here, they're in the entry-level positions, they get a scholarship, they make Moorings Park better. The foundation's doing incredible work there. How does that look like practically? Every single year, we create a document like this. We list all of our 30 to 40 management positions we have throughout the organization now. We list who is in that job right now. And then we list who's ready now, if that job would open, who do we need to prepare, and what do we need to be doing to prepare them? And then finally, a contingency if that person should leave. I just gave you a sample of that. You can see it's color-coded. So at the top, my executive assistant, Catherine Walters, came to us in the dining room from Terracina Grand and worked up to become a manager in the dining room. Now this executive assistant position. That happened more than 3 years ago, so she's promoted in this position more than 3 years ago and shows up in that salmon color. Right below her, I already talked about Kayla Crawford, promoted within 3 years into that position. You can just see a sample in the wellness department. Mitch Swanson, Selena Gonzalez, Robert Sorensen, Liam Goddard, all people that came in, did an excellent job at Moorings Park, and have been promoted into management positions. We're going to still be very, very intentional about doing that with people that come into Moorings Park, whether they be in the dining room, whether they be in the wellness department, helping them find a way to grow, get better, and make Moorings Park better. So wrapping up, organization, talent, and culture is a strategic initiative because nothing impacts the quality of life for each of our residents more than the partners that serve them on a daily basis. We're going to have to get very good at retaining. We're going to have to get very good at attracting. We're going to have to get very good at enhancing the skills once people are here. And then finally, we're going to have to give people a path to grow. With that, I'll turn it over to Mary Morton, and she'll talk about growth and innovation.
Good afternoon. This first slide lists the diverse partner committee who have been tasked with overseeing execution of the growth and innovation strategic initiatives. And this committee is led by the chair, Kayla Crawford. Moorings Park's strategy surrounding growth and innovation is to inspire innovation and drive growth that enhances value and improves the aging experience. Growth is not new to Moorings Park, and this slide summarizes the annualized growth rates in assets and revenue for the 3 most recent 7-year time periods. During this same time period, growth was a trend in our overall industry. In fact, back in 2004, just like Moorings Park, 60% of CCRCs were single-site communities. Today, less than 35% of CCRCs in the United States are single sites. We have talked about growth in previous open forums, including the benefits of growth, some of those being promotion of mission, greater ability to enhance programs and services, to improve the resident experience, greater ability to attract talent and leadership, and being able to take advantage of economies of scale in order to help keep resident rate increases lower. But recent compatible growth at Moorings Park has improved our net operating margin and increased reserves. And the benefits of this were felt most recently during the pandemic, when Moorings Park was able to use its reserves to cover the negative financial impacts of COVID-19 instead of increasing resident rates. So Moorings Park has always been focused on compatible growth, and the prerequisites or conditions that are necessary in order to move forward with a growth opportunity are detailed in the 7-year growth plan. And in fact, one of those conditions is that the current opportunity must serve or provide benefits for current residents. And we use this growth plan to maintain a living pipeline of growth and innovation projects. But I just want to reiterate that our strategic plan is really focused on the long term, with some goals that take years to accomplish. And in the near term, we will continue to maintain focus on sales and construction at Moorings Park Grand Lake and increasing occupancy at Moorings Park, primarily in the newly renovated buildings A and G. So how do organizations stay innovative? Moorings Park is considered a leader in our industry in terms of innovation, and it is ingrained in our culture, as one of Moorings Park's core values is open to innovation. But we need to continually ask ourselves, how do we remain in the forefront of our industry and maintain that innovative culture? And there are 2 strategic initiatives in place to address this. One is to implement new systems that enhance care and quality of life for residents while helping teams focus on the most important aspects of their jobs. Second is to empower Moorings Park partners to find innovative solutions that will enhance care and elevate the resident experience. Another strategic initiative is to actively seek collaborative partnerships with those who are passionate about aging innovation, and which will provide Moorings Park access to a broad range of resources and expertise. We already have 2 very good examples of this. First is Moorings Park's partnerships with Johns Hopkins University and NCH made the concierge healthcare program possible and available to all residents. Moorings Park at Gray Oaks and Moorings Park Grand Lake were developed through an innovative model that mitigated risk to Moorings Park, and that was through partnerships with Hallstatt and London Bay Homes. So we do plan to continually seek collaborative partnerships for future growth and innovation opportunities. This slide lists a few other strategic priorities that have been identified by the committee. One being to use predictive analytics in order to be proactive and intervene before an adverse event happens. And this is actually a continuation of our 2017 strategic plan. And what that means is that we want to use the wealth of resident information that we already have in order to be proactive. And one example is that there are algorithms that could measure someone's gait and predict their risk of falling. So wouldn't it be great if we could work with a resident 6 months before they're predicted to fall, rather than be reactive and respond to a pull cord after a fall? Another potential strategic priority is expansion through providing more services in the home, rather than expansion through bricks and mortar. The Moorings Park already serves over 250 clients who are not a current resident in one of Moorings Park's communities. And that is through our home health agency, our outpatient therapy practice, the Platinum and Diamond wait lists, and the Care 360 program. And we've also talked about a potential additional program that would provide services in the home, and that's called catered living. And that would serve individuals who desire to reside in independent living, but may need some assistance with activities of daily living. So they would benefit from the safety and security of personalized services being brought into their independent living home in lieu of a more traditional assisted living model. To conclude, I just want to reiterate that all of this effort and activity over through growth and innovation is really for the ultimate goal of enhancing value and improving the resident experience. When a resident chooses Moorings Park as their home, we enter into a long-term commitment with them to provide best-in-class programs and services so that they can live their lives to the fullest. The committee, led by Kayla, has been doing an excellent job providing the leadership and support in monitoring execution of the growth and innovation strategic initiatives, and we look forward to keeping you updated on their progress. Thank you.
The third and final strategy for 2021, moving over the course of the next 3 years, is a strategy that we commonly call brand communication. Now, communication is a term that we're all familiar with. However, brand communication is kind of a 21st century spin on superlative communication. So what does it mean? Well, the true definition is it represents the unique characteristics of any one single company's ability to inform, enlighten, teach, motivate, educate their customer. So, of course, in our case, the customer is you, our residents. And in addition to that, we also feel that our partners are our customer. So that is ideally what we desire to do. We want to create an optimal environment where we're communicating to the very best of our abilities. So the big question is always going to be, why is this so important? Take a look at the very best companies, those that are highly regarded, those that are admired, both on the national basis and the global basis. And you will recognize that there are some consistent core attributes or core competencies that these companies share. One of them, which was spoken by Dan earlier, is, and I'll use a little bit of ad-libbing here, but it's essentially a relentless commitment to quality. Absolutely obsessed with delivering quality like no other. Another one is superior teamwork and collaboration. A third is the ability to exercise strong emotional intelligence. So in this case, what I'm truly trying to define here is the ability to show great passion for what we do. And then the last one is exceptional communication. So I think you will find that all of the highly regarded and probably the most admired companies anywhere have many core attributes, but these four are going to be on their top list. We know that if we're going to be successful moving forward, we have to have the ability to effectively communicate. And the reason that this is so important, not only because we want to be one of those very best companies out there, is because timely, accurate, and pertinent information delivered to our customer, it builds trust. It delivers transparency. It provides the insight that our people want to know about. And when we do that, we earn a certain sense of confidence from the people that we serve. Now, this is easier said than done because we have a variety of different age groups, both serving our customer and also the customer ourselves, which is our residents. We're talking about many different generations. Those generations absorb information differently. Some are very computer literate. The digital media is something that they exercise each and every day as a standard practice. And others may still read a newspaper. They may still look to read something on paper, such as a memorandum. And so we have a broad scope and breadth of how people take information in. So while this is kind of the unique of the three strategies. It's an extremely large challenge to take on, but one that we look forward to. I don't want to oversimplify the presentation here, but we have three buckets. And this just gives you a sense of what we'll be facing when we present this to our residents, which we have a committee made up of, and we also have a committee made up of our partners. So in these three buckets, you see need to know, want to know, and nice to know. So these are going to be just an example of the challenges that we'll face when we start to roll up our sleeves and really start to diagnose what we do well and also what we need to improve upon. If you can envision each of these buckets, also will have certain tools assigned to them. And those tools will deliver information differently. Some of those we're currently exercising right now, we're doing pretty well with. At least that's the feedback that we receive. But this is far larger, this strategy is far larger than just simply three buckets of information. It's also using the latest technology to deliver that information and also receive feedback as well. Our 6 initiatives related to this particular, to our committee and the particular challenge that we face is establishing resident and staff cross-functional committees. We've done this. So the staff cross-functional committee is being chaired by Bern Gary. If you haven't had a chance to meet Bern, he is the new administrator of Orchid Terrace. We also have an equal size committee made up of residents, which is representative of all 3 campuses. And we're very excited to have our first meeting here in the very near future in the month of March. We'll be using a variety of technology, some of the latest technology. That's going to require some investigation on our part as well. We'll reach out to some great companies out there, both in Florida and abroad. We're going to identify the frequency of communication. How often do we need to send information out, depending on what the subject matter is, and who do we send that information out to? Now, as we now are continuing to develop Grand Lake, we'll also install some of the latest equipment there, and we'll continuously up the game, and we'll have better devices and better capability to receive the information. Consistency is always critical. This is arguably one of our greatest challenges, and we're going to continue to work toward creating a very consistent messaging system. Tracking and measuring effectiveness, this falls in the category of if it's worth doing and it's important to us, we have to have a yardstick to measure the effectiveness, and we will. And then the communication, as I mentioned earlier about brand communication, it's to teach, it's to motivate, it's to educate. We want to weave into the fabric of brand communication our core values. It's a great opportunity for us to remind certainly our partners those values that we hold very true. A few amplifiers here. I just want to remind everyone, just like Dan and Mary, this is a 3-year study. There is some what we commonly call quick hitters that we're going to be able to implement very, very quickly, only because they make common sense and they don't require a whole lot of diagnostic work or deep thought. We can make some improvements almost immediately. Conversely, there are some things that are going to take extensive period of time. We're going to have to do some research. We're going to have to do some study. We're going to determine how it affects each campus. And that would be applicable to both our residents and also our partners. And lastly, in summary, I just wanted to mention that the communication methods are constantly changing. So with that change, we're always going to have more questions, and those questions are going to outweigh our best practices. So we're going to have to continue to focus on communicating to the very best of our ability. And with that, I'll turn it back to Dan.
Okay, thank you, Ross and Mary. So I'll just conclude by the what, the why, and the how. We're focused on the day-to-day and the service delivery every day. but we also need to be focusing on the long term. So it's a 3-year strategic plan. That's the what. It has 3 elements in it now moving forward: organizational talent and culture, growth and innovation, and brand communication. The why is pretty simple. We're signing a lot of contracts right now. Grand Lake is selling, over 10 a month and up to 90 some now. Here on the original campus, we're selling several, and 13 right now in refurb. Census is increasing. Every time we sign one of those contracts, we're making a 15 to 16-year commitment on average for a couple. So we need to make sure not only we're focusing on the day-to-day excellence, but that we're ensuring that Moorings Park will be just as premier 15 to 16 years from now as it is today. The how you can engage, although COVID-19 interrupted it, we started by talking about strategies in open forums and getting your feedback. We involved the resident council in doing a SWOT analysis and giving us feedback on our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Ross talked about some advisory committees we're already forming, and that has been our practice, 1 or 2 of these every year on a strategic initiative. Be ready to serve on an advisory committee, but get involved in the resident council. Hundreds of committees, management meets with them on a monthly basis. You get involved, you'll be talking about the day-to-day, but these strategic long-term issues will come up. Finally, you now know, although you might not have been able to read the slides, you can download them from the neighborhood. You know who's on every one of these committees. Clearly talk to Ross, Mary, or I. Give us your feedback about the strategic plan so that we can work hard to make sure that Moorings Park remains premier for years to come. Thanks.